Welcome to Cinema Convos. This is the show where we bring guests with different tastes in film. I'm your host, Yash, and I'm here with a special guest, Zach, who is not the usual Zach. And today we are discussing the film The Sandlot from 1993, which was directed by David Mickey Evans and was starring Tom Geary and Patrick Renna. And before we get started today, just wanted to issue a quick spoiler warning if you haven't seen this movie. We will get into some specifics in the plot, so we recommend watching the movie before listening to this episode. And with that, I wanted to ask you, Zach, what's your first memory or best memory with this movie?
Yeah, for sure. So first of all, great to be here. Thanks for having me on, Yash.
For sure.
And I think my first and best memory with this film happened at my grandparents' house. We would go there in South Texas, and we would go there probably 2 or 3 times a year. And she had a collection of movies, and one of them was Sandlot. And that's the one we watched probably 3 out of 4 times when we would go there. And we watch it just over and over again. And there's very few movies to me, that I can just watch like that on repeat. But this was certainly one of them. And it got to the point, probably not there anymore, but it got to the point where I could, before the line was said, I could quote it. It was odd that it was one of our favorites because none of us were super into baseball. I wasn't a huge sports guy anyway, and especially not baseball. But I don't know, something about the movie was just really nostalgic and something that I never lived through. It's not like I was a 50s kid who played baseball in a sandlot.
Right.
But regardless, it was something that really just conjured up some really good vibes.
Yeah.
And it was something that we always decided. I mean, we had a list. We had like 20 movies in there. And we always decided to watch Sandlot. So I don't know what it was.
I'm the Great Bambino. What? I'm the Great Bambino. What? I'm the Great Bambino.
I think the movie just captures what it feels like to be a kid, regardless of the era it takes place in, which happens to be like the 60s, 50s, or whatever. But yeah, for me, my introduction to The Sandlot is kind of hard to pinpoint. But what I do remember is, this is going to be kind of bizarre, but the first movie I watched was actually this direct-to-DVD movie called The Sandlot Heading Home at someone's house. And I was like, what is this?
I think I've seen that.
It's the third one.
Okay. Yeah, they had a bunch of sequels.
And I don't know, I that's when I first heard the title, The Sandlot. Then I just remember it being shown in like at least 2 or 3 different classes in high school. And I think because of the way our class periods were set up, I never watched the end like properly. So like watching it today, I was like, oh, that's how it ends. Like, I don't remember any of this.
It's funny you say that because it's about, the runtime I think is 1 hour and 40 minutes. And I actually drove downtown to my apartment to get my mail. And the route there is like 40 minutes. And then the route back's about the same, depending on the traffic. And I got to the point where it was like, I had like the 10 minutes left. And I was like, that's basically like the school periods. So I sat and listened to the ending.
I always got to like the big chase with the dog, and then I never got to watch the rest. So
yeah, you got to see where all the characters end up.
I feel like I watched it on TV at some point, but like, since I've seen this movie so many times, most of my viewings of it were just like, I guess 85% of the film.
Yeah.
But,
well, I mean, that's where most of the action happens, but the end really just ties the knot.
Yeah. And it's interesting you brought up that it's like you weren't that into sports, because like I definitely am not really that into sports, but I don't even consider this to be like a sports movie, even though they're like mostly they just play baseball. It's just kind of a movie about like reflecting on your youth, I think, more than anything else.
It definitely is. And I think one of the most charming aspects of the movie is how I remember I was listening to it, I rewatched it for this podcast, and every segue they have into a different scene, the narrator frames it as the biggest pickle any of us had ever seen, or he did the most gutsy thing any of us had ever seen. It really just makes light of how big things seem as a kid. And when you actually, like, if I were to read the plot of The Sandlot on a paper, I would be like, no, I'm not going to watch that movie. Some kids hit a baseball over a fence. But But as you know, as corny as some pieces of it seem, they really managed to make a simple story, a kid's story, into something really special.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can tell me some of your favorite aspects after this, but for me, what really works about this movie is just it's the little things they say that are just hilarious. Like throughout the movie, there's so many like little pieces of dialogue that are like when you're paying attention, you just like realize it's so clever and like I don't know. It's like imagining a kid's talking like this. It's so funny and like they don't even need to like swear a lot. They're just so funny without it. Because a lot,
They
they could have gone that route and just made them really like perverse,
vulgar.
but they don't need to. They just say like they say shit a couple times, but like
Yeah.
it's not like they're cursing the whole time. They're just saying ridiculous things.
Shut up, idiot! Moron! Scab eater! Butt sniffer! Pus licker! Fart smeller! You eat dog crap for breakfast, geek! You mix your weenies with your mama's toe jam! Yeah!
Like there's one scene that's like the character of Squints says the funniest stuff. And Ham obviously, but there's one scene where Squints just like, listen to me. This is a matter of life or death. And it's like, whoa, it's like this is so serious now. Like it's just the things they take seriously are
Right.
so ridiculous.
No, it is. I actually contrast this movie with Stand By Me.
I
Another
just saw that
classic.
one not too long
Yeah,
ago.
and they take different routes. I think each of them are fantastic movies, but they certainly take different routes. Because I remember Stand By Me was pretty edgy for some kids. Like they had some mature content in there.
Yeah, it's a much
And I
more.
think Sandlot was able to accomplish the same sort of coming of age film without it, and that's really why I know it. I don't think my mom would have let me watch it if it was rated R.
Yeah, I mean they showed it in public schools, so like all the way from like my beginning of high school to end of high school, there was always some teacher trying to show this movie. At least in my
I'm
experience.
kind of jealous. I don't think I had those teachers.
Yeah, well,
For the
shout
audience,
out
me and
to them.
Yash went to the same high school.
Yeah, like that's why Zach is perplexed. He's trying to figure out.
Yeah, I
a
mean,
lot of the same
we did watch
classes,
Star
too.
Wars, which was great, but beyond that, we didn't watch any. I don't think we watched any of the classics like this.
It's interesting that any teacher showed this movie because it really doesn't have much educational value. I'm
Yeah.
surprised that teachers were showing it, but it must have been like the last week or something.
Yeah.
I guess we've talked about some of the more humorous aspects of the movie, but you've mentioned that this movie does work as a coming of age movie. Are there any particular themes in the movie that you find to be profound or like stand out to you?
I think it's really comforting how in the movie, a lot of what we would see now as adults as small issues are just completely blown up. I think the film captures that really well. How, him launching a baseball signed by Babe Ruth. Yes, that's obviously an extremely valuable baseball.
But even then, the guy was like, you could have just knocked and I would have given you.
Right. It's really funny to kind of see the movie put into context how big the issues we have as adolescents, how big we think they are and how big they actually are. And I think that's a really comforting piece. The other thing I really like, and it's something I like about a lot of coming of age films, is just the camaraderie you have with your friends. Sometimes that centers around baseball. In my case, it definitely didn't. I wasn't a sports guy, but it centered around other things. And I think that's something a lot of people can relate to.
Yeah.
And so that's always nice. I actually found the same about It. Did you read It, or did you?
I've watched the movies.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the same thing.
The first part definitely has that coming of age element. Yeah.
No,
I mean,
for
for me,
sure.
I
I
also
always like that.
I always appreciate when coming of age films are done well. In this movie, I think what makes it kind of different, it's like baseball is just kind of in the backdrop, and they tell you kind of early on that they just play casually. They're not trying to like make it big, like except for like maybe one of them. They're just trying to like enjoy their summer. And I think that mindset of not having a care in the world is something we've all had as a kid.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty relatable. But also it shows that like, with the very last shot in the movie being the frame of them all in that photo, it reminds us that like, these small moments in our lives can like have a deep impact on us. Clearly the main character, Smalls, he remembers this particular summer for the rest of his life. So it's just like, which is like a summer is like 3 months. So it's like this small period of time had such a big impact on his life moving forward. So I think that's a pretty strong statement the movie tries to make.
And I relate to that because I don't know about you, but when I think back to my childhood and I think about the 5 years old, once I had consistent memory all the way up until even high school, time seemed to pass a lot slower.
Yeah.
And I could totally understand how one summer could be such an important memory in your life because it just really did pass a whole lot slower. Maybe it's just COVID, but I feel like this year has passed with the snap of a finger.
Yeah, it's weird.
And I kind of miss that time passing so slowly when I was 7 for what seemed like 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Right, it was just one.
The way I look at it is how, as an adult, regardless of what you're pursuing in your life, your free time becomes more limited. Whereas as a kid, you're like, you don't even know what you're doing tomorrow. You just wake up and like, okay, it's summer vacation. We'll go play baseball today or whatever they're doing in this movie. Like it's
Right.
super casual. And now it's like, well, I have 2 hours here. Maybe I can play some baseball. Maybe I can work on a podcast. I don't know. Like, it's just different.
Everything is allotted.
Yeah, but the innocence of just being a child is portrayed very well in this movie. The fact that it's just so funny makes it that much better.
Oh yeah. I also think back to all the scenes where they tried to get the ball back and how absolutely complex all of those contraptions they made. Like, where did they get those vacuums?
Well, I think at the beginning they show that like Smalls is like kind of nerdy and like builds these type of things.
Right.
And then his mom is like, why don't you go like play outside for a bit? Which
Yeah, get into trouble.
the things they do. And, for me, that's one thing about this movie that kind of bothers me. It's kind of a big plot hole, but it also works because they're kids. Because, like, as soon as they lose the Babe Ruth ball, they're like, all right, go, like, sell bottles and, like, get some money for a new ball. I'm like, they should have just done that in the first place. That's
That's actually a really good point. The other thing I always think about when I think of Sandlot is what's real and what's not, right? Because the portrayal of the beast is obviously exaggerated substantially.
Just a big dog.
So yeah, exactly. So like, what's real, what's not? I mean, it doesn't even really matter when you watch the movie. You don't really care what's real and what's not.
Right.
It's just what their perception of what's real. It's like it kind of comes into context at the end when he says, well, why didn't you just knock on the door? Of course that would have worked.
That would have been the obvious solution.
But then the movie wouldn't have been so special.
Yeah, but then also like these are kids and they've imagined this like crazy old man who like lives by himself who like will kill them if they knock on their door.
Right. I also like how the old man says that he was better than Babe Ruth. Thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You knew Babe Ruth?
George? I sure did. And he knew me. He was almost as great a hitter as I was. I would have broken his record too, but...
You went blind.
Yep.
I had forgotten that whole arc because I don't think I've watched it that many times.
Isn't that the same actor that plays Darth Vader?
I believe.
Totally getting
yeah,
that wrong?
James Earl Jones.
James Earl Jones, yeah.
Vader, and I believe he's in The Lion King as well. I guess he's technically the most like famous person in this movie, but I didn't introduce him in the intro.
But he only has like 5 minutes.
But one thing that's interesting about this movie is how it kind of has to take place in the 60s for a lot of the plot conveniences.
Yeah.
Because if this movie was taking place today, he could just easily look up who is the Great Bambino or who is
Right.
Truth. But because he has no access to like find out who that is and doesn't bother to ask anyone, it's like, oh well, that kind of leads to their whole pickle at the end.
Yeah.
When you just
You're right on that. And then the other thing I related to, I don't know if you can relate to this, but one of the things that I definitely related to was when he first came onto the Sandlot and they were all just giving him a hard time because he couldn't throw and couldn't catch.
Yeah.
When I was back in, did you ever go to Hostler?
No, I did not. I lived in a different area.
Yeah. So for the audience, Hostler is our elementary school here in the neighborhood. And we would always play football at recess. And it's not a claim to fame, it's a claim to notoriety. I could not catch the ball to save my life. And when Smalls couldn't catch it and when he couldn't throw it, I related to that so much. And the constant saying like, oh, sorry. And to have that Benny character come in and help him out, I think that's something that like any little action that someone takes on someone who doesn't fit in is so nice and just so refreshing. And I really think they captured that well with Benny. That's just another piece.
You ever have a paper out?
I helped a guy once.
Okay. Well, tuck it like you would throw paper. When your arm gets here, just let go. Just let go. It's that easy.
How do I catch it?
Just stand there and stick your glove out in the air. I'll take care of it.
I have something kind of relatable. Middle school PE is a nightmare, first of all.
Yes.
But also I was just not a very like sportsy kid, and I participated as little as possible, to be honest. And it's funny because one of the things we did in middle school was like every Friday we'd have to play flag football, at least in my middle school. And I didn't even know the rules of football because I didn't watch it. Like I just didn't know. So, like, that was
you didn't play Madden.
So I had to learn. Yeah, I was playing other games, like definitely not Madden. I had to learn how to play football, and I barely participated. But then I learned eventually like how to play. And then there was one day where I got a touchdown because I like caught the ball. And like whenever that like unathletic kid does something like that, like everyone loses their minds as a kid. And it happened to one
Right.
who played like dodgeball too or something or kickball. Like it's kind of a cool feeling when you don't care, but it's also like
It's also like, what did I do?
like what did I do?
Like,
I don't
why are
care
y'all
enough
so
for this.
happy? You're
There's
right.
always like, and there's always those kids that treat PE like it's the Olympics. It's
Oh my
like,
gosh, yeah.
this is not going to matter in like an hour. So
Yeah. No, I totally get that. The whole
yeah,
mix
like what I
of the-
like about this group of friends is like, they're just playing to play. They only compete one time against their like rival gang, which is a whole other thing.
and they
we'll
beat
get
them
into.
soundly, which I thought that was funny.
Yeah, but yeah, I guess kind of moving on. This is a topic I wanted to get into because as I was watching this movie today, I think I have my answer, but I was having a hard time picking my favorite scene. There's
Mhm.
a few very solid ones. I was just
Yeah.
curious if you had a favorite scene in the movie or if there's a couple scenes that like stand out to you.
Yeah, I actually thought you might ask this, and when
Mm.
I was rewatching it, I was watching it with the lens of like, I need to pick a favorite scene, and I don't think I have one, but I will highlight some positive elements in a number of scenes. So one of the first ones I think is really funny is how, do you remember in the vacuum scene how the explosion is viewed from like 5 different angles, like an action movie?
Like near the end when they're
When they're trying to get the ball
oh yeah,
back
trying to get the
and they have
ball.
all the vacuums. I thought that was really nice. I thought that was a good touch. It's
Yeah.
just so dramatic. Just the vacuums blowing up from
Yeah.
their little scheme to get the ball back. I like that scene. I think the carnival scene is hilarious.
With the chewing tobacco.
Right, right.
Shaw! I was saving it for a good time.
What is it?
Big Chief. The best.
She's Smalls. I suppose you don't even know who the babe is either. It's Plug. What? Chewing tobacco?
Backy, man.
What do you do with it? You're killing me, Smalls.
And it's just another example of how the segues in that movie always just highlight whatever they're doing as the most important thing. Like they said, and we did the stupidest thing any of us had ever done. Right. It's a recurring theme throughout the movie. So I
That scene
really
is
like that
disgusting,
one.
though. That scene is so gross, though.
Oh, I know. It is. It is really
You
gross.
just start throwing up like all over the carnival.
Right.
Oh man,
Yeah.
that's funny. It is a funny scene.
If you throw up when you see other people throw up, you're not going to
Guys,
want to watch
don't
that
watch the
scene.
movie if you feel nauseous beforehand, because that scene might do it for you.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah, for me, I have two favorite scenes. I have a hard time picking just one. Okay, so the pool scene is I was just laughing so hard the whole time. Like
Yeah.
Ham is like going up to the girls and he's like, "Oh hey, sexy!" Like
Yeah, the
he's just,
cannonball.
he just cannonballs like a little kid. Like he tries to be all grown up. Like
I love it. Yeah.
it captures how as a kid you're just trying to be grown up, but you're also like still kind of dumb and like
Right.
do stuff like that. But then like when Squints like pretends to drown,
Oh,
just
yeah.
to, like get a kiss from that lifeguard, and like his and then as soon as his friends find out he was doing it on purpose, they all just like worship him, like respect it.
Is that simping?
Sandlot has a little bit of simping.
Right.
And one day, it became too much
Smiling.
for Michael Squints Polidorus.
I can't take this no more. Move!
And he did the most desperate thing.
But then the other scene that I think is so funny is when that like rival team shows up and they just start like throwing insults at each other.
Oh yeah, the battle.
And then like as soon as he says like you play ball like a girl, like it's just everyone's dead silent. And like it's the worst thing they've ever heard. And when we're kids, like that kind of stuff is actually like, whoa, like he said that. Can you believe it?
Yeah.
But yeah, again, like as I said earlier, this was an opportunity for them to like they could have put more swearing in the movie, but they chose not to, and it makes it even funnier.
Yeah.
Because they're saying words that are like, oh, he says like pea drinker or something, like weird stuff. And
Yeah.
like and it's just really funny. But
Yeah, you have to get creative with your insults when you can't cuss.
yeah, exactly. And then when they actually play the baseball game and he's just trying to distract all the people at batting, it's really funny. He's like, "Is that your sister? She's naked."
Oh yeah.
You can
That's
go out with
right.
me? Like it's just so funny the things they say.
Oh yeah. It's well written. It is.
which is something I had kind of forgotten about the movie until I watched today, like how well written some of the bits are.
Right. Yeah, and it's written in such like an over, like everything is so dramatic, but
Mhm.
that just adds to it.
Yeah, I mean, that's how dramatic it is to these kids. Anything
Right.
can happen.
Yeah, everything seems larger than life.
Mhm.
Hey, is that your sister out there in left field? Naked? She's naked. Shut up, Porter! Hey, I'm just trying to have a little friendly conversation. You think she'd go out with me?
So we've talked a little bit about how this movie is definitely a comedy and it's definitely a coming of age movie. I think those are the two genres that fit it the best.
Yeah.
But would you say there are any other movies in the same genre that like stand out to you personally? Like any movie that you feel is kind of similar? You already mentioned Stand By Me, but I was curious
Yeah.
if there were any other
One
ones.
other one I was going to mention was Kings of Summer. Did you see
Yeah,
that?
yeah, I have seen it.
Oh gosh, I'm going to forget who was in that. It's been a long time since I've seen that. I think Moises Arias was in
Marcus
that.
Arias is in it.
And this is probably so wrong. Is Timothy Chalamet in that?
Nick Robinson from Love Simon fame.
Right, Nick. Okay, it wasn't. Okay, yeah.
Nick Offerman's in it. He's kind of well known.
Oh yeah, he was the dad. Yeah, no, I think that one it's not at all really a similar movie, but the fact that they exaggerate things and like the whole pretending that he's being self-sufficient out in the woods, but he's just going to Boston Market every day. You remember that bit?
Yeah, the dynamic between the three friends is kind of similar.
Right. And then one thing that they had there, and I know they kind of had it with Wendy Peppercorn in Sandlot, but they had a romantic element to it with I don't even remember the character. I'm not doing a good job on this
That's totally
comparison,
fine.
but they had that in there. I just remember really liking that movie. They definitely swore, so I think it was a
Oh, yeah.
movie more geared towards like an adult
Mhm.
audience, but still conjuring up that same sort of nostalgic sense that Sandlot does for me, and that Stand By Me does for me as well. And it's funny because it's again nostalgia for something that I never really lived through. It's just it still conjures up that feeling of nostalgia, regardless of whether I experience something like the characters.
One movie that I think this movie is kind of similar to in a very different way is The Goonies.
But
Yeah.
tell me about it.
Yeah, The
Yeah.
Goonies is from the 80s and it's a lot more like adventure focused in this movie, but the interactions between the characters feel very similar to this movie. And another more recent movie that this reminded me of, which is also like a movie where they use a lot more profanity, but was Good Boys from last year. Because yeah, it's like an R-rated comedy, but it's also a movie about three middle school boys who like don't know what's going on and don't
Yeah.
know a lot of things. So I think in that regard, it's similar to The Sandlot. But it is much raunchier in this movie. But it's the way the
Did
characters
you
act.
like Good Boys?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
I didn't actually see it. I need to watch it. I really need to do a little better on the movie game.
I'd watch it with you. It's super good. It's really funny.
We're sorry, we just want to learn how to kiss.
Lucas, it's none of their business.
We should have just told the truth. We're going to a kissing party, and none of us have ever kissed, and we're scared.
God damn it, Lucas. I've had sex before, but I've never kissed a girl.
I saw
One of the other ones. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I saw that one in the theater. Like it came out near my birthday, so I think I just watched it as my birthday movie that year.
Yeah, one of the ones that I thought of when you asked that question was, and I don't remember the name of it, but it was the one where it was like it's kind of like space sci-fi related. Like there was someone who drove the truck on the train track into the train. Do you remember this? They were filming something. It was like a zombie movie. They were filming a zombie movie. Do you know what I'm talking about? I gotta look this up.
I'm drawing a blank. But I mean, I will say this while you're looking for that, I will say that this movie, it definitely feels more like a coming of age movie than like a baseball movie. That's why I don't really think it's fair to compare it to baseball movies.
Oh, okay. I found out what it was.
Okay.
But also, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, because baseball movies or sports movies typically lead up to a big game, and this movie leads up to like running away from a dog.
Baseball is just a backdrop for the coming of age story, for sure. Is Super 8 was what the movie I was thinking of.
Oh, Super 8? I have seen that movie. I just couldn't.
Yeah.
I could understand your description of it.
Yeah. Oh, come on. You couldn't understand that description? No, I think it's similar to that because I think the dialogue in that movie was really funny without being super profane as well.
Yeah.
It was just well written to capture what a kid thinks.
Super 8 in general I think it really did try to capture the nostalgic feeling of like movies from the 80s and 90s like The Sandlot.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and it's actually funny Sandlot was made in the 90s because it takes place in the 60s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I always thought it was older than it was.
Yeah,
but I guess
I didn't realize it was like as new as it is.
No, I know. Yeah, I mean, I guess the quality is like of a '90s movie
Mhm.
in terms of film quality, but
Yeah. I
I
mean, this
always thought it
movie
was
definitely
older.
could have been made like earlier too. Like it doesn't have anything that special effects wise, I guess, that couldn't have
Right.
been already done.
In fact, I think the cheesier the special effects would have been with the dog, the better, honestly.
Yeah, the whole dog thing is just really funny. It's also like, as you said, like, they saw it as a much bigger problem than it was. I also forgot they like saved the dog. I didn't remember that at all until watching it today.
Yeah, yeah, they lift the fence off of him, and he's totally fine.
Yeah.
No injuries whatsoever. He becomes their mascot.
Yeah, Hercules.
In a few weeks, the pup grew into the beast, and he grew big, and he grew mean, so that he could protect the junkyard with only one thing on his mind: to kill everyone that broke in. And he did. And he liked it. A lot.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you. So I mentioned the Sandlot heading home, and I was curious if you've seen any of the sequels. Because I remember one of our teachers, showed us the first Sandlot, and the next few days she showed us the Sandlot 2, and I watched like 10 minutes of it, and I was like, "This is a bad movie. I can't do it. This is
Yeah,
so bad." And I don't know if you've ever seen any of them, but there's the Sandlot
sequels.
2, and then there's from 2005, which is a direct to video.
Because I definitely have seen one of the sequels. I just don't exactly remember which one it was. I think it was Sandlot 2, but
What's
I don't
really
remember
upsetting about the
anything about
Sandlot
it.
2 is it has the same director as the original.
What was the plot of that one? Did
I
you
never,
did
I
you
never
finish
watched that.
watching that?
I did
Okay.
not, because it was only one class period where we started it.
Right. Yeah, I have not watched the sequel. Oh, I take that back. I have watched the one, but it was maybe 10 years ago. But I definitely haven't watched is it Sandlot 3 or what is it called?
Sandlot Heading Home, which I
Yeah, I
remember
haven't watched
was
that one.
okay as a kid. I really don't know how it aged, but but that one like is like Tommy Santarelli travels back in time to the 70s.
Hmm.
I don't know. It's just
Time travel.
yeah, it has some
Wow.
time travel elements.
Major League star Tommy Santarelli had a big-time swing and an even bigger attitude.
Bring it.
Until one pitch sent him back to the Sandlot.
I just can't believe what I'm seeing.
It's an interesting take.
It looks like the guy who plays Squints reprises his role in it. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I guess in general, it is kind of interesting how these classic movies have sequels, and for a lot of them, they're just kind of throwaways. They're not really adding any value.
Right. Yeah. Why do they do that?
I mean, money. That's why.
I know, but
But yeah,
what is a direct to video going to get you?
yeah. I guess especially now, it's the equivalent of a direct-to-video would be like a Netflix original or something. They just buy the rights to it.
I feel like a Netflix original,
Well, Netflix is
I
getting
feel like
better.
that's gotten so much more prestige now.
But
Like
if
if
you
you said direct to video in 2010 versus like a Netflix original, I think you're dealing with two totally different animals there.
Yeah, because Netflix originals used to all be like terrible. Now there actually like,
Yeah,
are some good ones. I don't know if you've noticed that.
I have. Yeah.
Like I would say maybe 5, 6 years ago, if it said Netflix original, the chances are it was either an okay or bad movie. But now it's
Yeah.
like they're picking some better projects, getting better deals, and it doesn't have the same definition anymore.
Oh yeah, it's kind of competing with the likes of HBO, who has their own originals and
I mean, I think every
stars
streaming
and
service has at least one piece of original content at this point.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, what are the big players? There's HBO, there's
Netflix,
Netflix, there's Hulu,
Amazon Prime,
Amazon Prime,
Showtime, and Apple TV are kind of lower tier.
right, yeah.
But
Showtime, yeah.
Disney Plus is doing some things.
Disney Plus, yeah. Yeah, it's
But
interesting. It's
I mean,
kind of
a few of them are like relatively new.
yeah.
They're still like establishing what they're trying to be, and they all kind of bring different things to the table. I happen to have a lot of the subscriptions right now, just for different reasons. So yeah, it's interesting what they're all doing. I guess Netflix has the benefit of longevity. It's been around for a while, which is why why some of their movies have even won Oscars at this point.
Yeah. I mean, you have to wonder. It's kind of like how Netflix competes with cable or
Yeah,
satellite.
I honestly think cable will be gone sometime.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think sports, at least for me, sports are the last thing that I keep cable for.
Sports and like live events, like award shows or like that type
Right.
of thing. Like,
But I feel like
debaters.
those can be easily, I mean, maybe not easily because I know the cable companies and the networks are really tied up with the sports, the
Yeah.
leagues, NFL. Maybe it's not so hard to break, but I really wish they would because I would much prefer to pay only for what I want to watch. Like if ESPN offered all of their content in a subscription model,
I
that
think
would be great.
there is ESPN Plus. I don't know if it
There
is on the
is, but they
same
don't
one.
have everything. They don't have everything I want to watch.
See, I don't have that one, so I can't speak for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, in general, this is interesting how we got here to this topic. But
I feel like this is classic podcast stuff.
no, dude,
Just go into different topics.
yeah, for sure. I like some of the tangents we've gone on in some of these episodes. Okay, yeah. So I guess in general, based on whatever we've seen, we can agree that like the sequels are kind of meh.
Yeah.
Just watch the original.
It definitely didn't stick out to me like Sandlot original did.
I haven't even seen like those ever, like again. Even if I've seen them, I don't remember them. But yeah, for sure. Okay, so I was wondering for this movie, does the score or music add to its overall effect?
So much. Yes. I think so much. Yes. I listened to this as a kid and I didn't really know of any music from the 60s. My parents listened to a bunch of classic rock, but that was more 70s and 80s. But like the music that I listened to in Sandlot, to me, that was the 50s. That was the 60s.
Whoa. Give it to me. Jeez Louise. What's the matter? Jeez. Wendy Peppercorn. Wow.
And I think it absolutely helped dramatize some of the kind of trivial issues that they ran into. Like the whole sequence where Benny jumps over the fence, gets the ball, and the music that like has, I don't even know what the song is. And then when they have him running around town, that soundtrack, I think that was really just classic. And then the carnival ride where they play tequila.
Yeah, that's
hilarious.
That stands out to me.
I think it was just all super great ads, and it just helps you feel like, hey, this is not a 90s movie. This is like a 60s movie. This is the music that was popular.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for me the music scene that stands out is the carnival ride, just because
Right.
it just fits like the situation they're in.
No, it does. I love the score. I love it. It's great.
A big part of this movie is how it has such unique and like funny characters that have a lot of like running bits or jokes. So I was wondering if you had a favorite character in the movie.
I think Benny is just an objectively good person. I
Mhm.
think that's hard not to like.
Yeah.
I think that Smalls is someone I relate to. I mean, just like he is my childhood self, just in a different setting. And then I think that you have tons of hilarious characters. Ham,
Mhm.
Squints, the kids that
brothers.
Timmy and Tommy Timmons. Yeah, the ones that copy each other. Just hilarious. But yeah, I feel like Benny's probably my favorite.
Uh-huh.
And Smalls is the one I relate to the most.
Yeah, I think Benny is probably the most likable character, but in terms of a comedic aspect, I love Ham and Squints. They're just so funny.
They are, and he's just
he's
just a loudmouth.
Just opens every sentence with like
yeah,
so ridiculous.
I think they capture middle school kids well, just like super negative and super antagonistic.
Yeah, like if it wasn't for Benny, like Smalls would have gone home and just been like, I have no friends. Like,
right.
Which is like makes you kind of wonder, like these kids are probably like pretty mean to a lot of people. Which
I
is
know, they're so
is,
mean. But then there's always Bennies in the world.
Why'd you bring him, Benny?
Because there's 8 of us and he makes 9.
Yeah, so would my sister, but I didn't bring her.
With 9 guys, we got a whole team, yeah.
Yeah, I guess
there's always Bennies.
Message is try to be the Benny.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, the characters are a big part of it, and I think that's what's missing in the sequels. I would have much rather seen these characters as adults rather than just like, trying to recreate.
That would have been
magic.
interesting. Yeah.
And I was just watching a reunion of most of the cast on like a Zoom call or something.
I think I saw that,
which was kind of fun. You can tell this movie is a big part of all of their lives.
Yeah.
I mean, considering most of them didn't like really pursue acting to the same extent.
Yeah. I wonder what they do now.
I'm sure a few of them still act to some extent.
Yeah.
You know, I saw the guy who plays Ham in something recently.
Really?
Like,
what is his name?
Patrick Renna. I could have swore I saw him in like a show or a movie. So I know I saw him in something.
He was in Bad Roomies.
He was in a TV series called Glow on Netflix.
What is Glow?
Glow is actually a very good show. The first season is kind of iffy, but it really has good characters. Female led. Yeah,
2017. Oh wow, it has a whole lot on Rotten Tomatoes.
it's a good series. It's I like it a lot actually. But he's in that show. He's in a couple episodes. I knew I had seen him as an adult somewhere, and I was
Yeah.
like, whoa, that's cool.
Oh, no. This can't end.
Oh.
Britannica, I want to be there for you. For everything from A to Z. Will you marry me?
You're too much. I'll see you at the match. I'll blow you a kiss.
Wait, so is that a maybe?
But yeah, I guess he's still acting because that show is like 2018 onwards.
Yeah, I gotta
Yeah,
watch
I
that.
mean, kind of moving on to, this movie came out in 1993, which is a pretty strong year for movies. So I was just wondering if how does it compare to other movies from the same year? Obviously, it has a following. I mean, that's without a doubt. If you look at like the audience score compared to the critic score, it's much higher.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, help me out here. What else came out in 93?
Let me tell you
That-
some movies that I really like from that year because it was a very strong year. So we had Spielberg back-to-back Schindler's List and Jurassic Park,
Oh wow.
two of his best movies, and one that's a Best Picture winner.
Yeah.
But we had some similar like feel-good movies like Mrs. Doubtfire, Rudy, we had Philadelphia. It was a pretty solid year for movies. Dazed and Confused.
Yeah.
I think The Sandlot is in my top 5 for that year, though.
Yeah, I think Sandlot, I don't know. I don't really know anything about the production or the reception at the time, but I feel like Sandlot was never trying to be just like this huge commercial success.
Right.
Always kind of struck me as like a cult following type movie, and I think it
For
does
sure.
fantastic for that.
I think without a doubt, it's definitely has like an audience following now. And it's a movie a lot of us have seen like so many times throughout our childhood.
Well, nostalgia is something that's it's such a hot commodity now.
Yeah.
You have all the BuzzFeed list of things that just trigger nostalgia in us. It's something that we all crave for some reason. But it's funny, nostalgia it's kind of hollow. It feels a little empty when you look at something nostalgic. It's like a time that was there and now isn't anymore.
And for
That's
this movie,
addictive.
I didn't really watch it as a kid. The first time I truly watched the whole thing was in high school. So it's a movie that I can say is like, it holds up well. I watched it today and I still really enjoyed it.
Okay.
I don't feel like I'm seeing it through any kind of special lens because I'm not that attached to it. So it's a movie that I think younger audiences and adults can appreciate, which is kind of a rare treat sometimes.
I think Pixar does that well.
Yeah, Pixar does it masterfully, like at least like 10 times throughout history.
Yeah, I love that.
But yeah, this is a non-animated film that families can watch together, which is nice. As long as you're okay with little swearing and Squints, being a clown at the pool and some mild drug use.
Wait, did they use drugs?
I mean, they had chewing tobacco at the car.
Oh, right. Okay. Legal
But-
drug. I mean, I guess not legal for them because they're underage.
They're pretty young. But I mean, I guess it's a good message because they didn't have a good night. So one thing I like to ask on the show, which is kind of a hard question, is there anything in the movie that you would change to improve it, or do you see it as a perfect film?
That is a tough one. Yeah. So I thought about it. I don't think I would change anything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'll say it's a perfect film, but
Right.
I don't think I would change anything. The thing I was mulling over and thinking about, would I want to change it is, maybe there could be a female character that they have some sort of romantic relationship with. That's what I was thinking, someone in the film. But then I thought about it and I'm like, these kids are 5th to 6th grade. Girls at this point are kind of outside of the picture. They're an external they're an external being when I'm that age. I think back to that. And I think it is nice that Wendy Peppercorn is something that's kind of just she's never really made real because she doesn't have a whole lot of dialogue.
Yeah.
I think she says, "You pervert." I think that's just about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually really well done because kids that age, they're not hanging out with as many girls maybe as they are as guys.
Yeah, for sure.
So I don't think I would change anything. That was the one thing I was thinking about.
I mean,
Maybe
they're
it'd be
saying
interesting.
things like you play ball like a girl as an insult. So I feel like if a girl was around, she'd be like, "That's kind of mean."
Yeah, yeah. I think it's well done, like it is.
I think for what The Sandlot sets out to do, it does really well. There are some moments, like I've mentioned, where the plot becomes a little convenient for the sake of it moving forward. But in terms of, rewatchability and just having a good time, it's a solid movie. I don't have the same attachment to it that a lot of other people do, but I do appreciate it. And yeah, I mean, I'll probably watch it again down the line. It's a fun movie.
Yeah.
And yeah, outside of like just some really like outrageous plot conveniences, like the whole ball thing.
Yeah, yeah.
I just don't see why Smalls wouldn't even like try to like ask his mom like who is the great Bambino. Like,
Well, and why would Smalls just grab his dad's prized baseball to go
Yeah,
play
like,
with
okay.
after he's seen, like, at least on 3 occasions, the ball either gets smashed open, hit over the fence, and just gone forever?
Like the way that like his dad has this ball on display, it's like even if you don't know who it is signed by, like it's still clearly valuable.
Right, yeah. But if
Not
something
the-
sits on a display, you can safely assume that that's something of importance.
Like I get the characters are kids, but sometimes they just do like really dumb stuff that I'm just like it's a bit much. But it's
Right.
part of the fun, and you just go with it.
Definitely.
And yeah, now they know if the ball ever goes over the fence, now there is no fence, but they can just knock
Yeah,
on the door.
yeah. It ends with I actually was thinking about that. How did they replace it? Did they?
I don't know because at the end, like the dog just kind of chills on the Sandlot. Now he's kind
Yeah.
of
The dog chills on the Sandlot.
like, he's not their
I love
dog.
that.
Like I don't think he should just be hanging out with them all the time.
Yeah, Hercules. He was the mascot.
Yeah, but yeah, I would say there's not like a scene I would take out. It's just it's like it's at a place where I wouldn't want to add anything. I wouldn't want to take anything away, but also like could have been a little bit more plausible, I guess. I don't know, in a couple of areas.
Right.
But yeah, that's pretty much all I could think of.
Even though Bill loved the murderer's row ball, he was still plenty mad about me having swiped his Babe Ruth autograph ball and ruining it. So I didn't feel too bad when he grounded me for a week, instead of the rest of my life.
It's a very solid movie in terms of entertainment.
Oh, yeah.
So before concluding this episode, are there any talking points you wanted to discuss, or do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, I guess I'd ask, what is your favorite coming-of-age film?
Ooh, that's tough. This is a genre that I always like love to revisit.
Well, and there's been a lot that have come out lately, even.
One of the most recent ones that I watched was Booksmart from last year. I thought that was a really well-written and funny movie that kind of showed what it's like to be in high school in like the modern age, I guess, which I really wouldn't know, but is my best guess.
Yeah,
But
I haven't seen that. It's a Netflix one, right?
No, Booksmart, it had a theatrical run. I believe it's on Hulu now.
Oh, you're right. It is.
But I also really enjoyed Bo Burnham's 8th Grade from
I
2018.
love Bo Burnham. I haven't seen 8th Grade.
He
but I
wrote and
just love
directed
that
8th
guy.
Grade, which is it captures the cringe of middle school like perfectly. Like it's not easy to watch because of how uncomfortable it is, but it's so like brilliantly done. He truly captures the awkward phase of being in 8th grade, like between high school and middle school. It's like terrible year.
Yeah.
She's a different generation than us.
She's
right
not a
to be
different
born-
generation.
Yes, she is.
She's 4 years younger than us. I mean,
Okay, but people who are like 4 years older than us felt like 50 years old.
it's like blatantly not
Your
true.
sister?
My sister just sucks.
Okay, but like, on top of that, she didn't have Twitter in middle school, and we did. That made us different.
Kayla, you're not different than us.
Well, yeah. When did you get Snapchat? What grade?
5th grade?
Fifth grade?
Oh.
What? Yo!
and that movie was really, really clever. But one of my favorites is actually, I'll shout out a movie that is less heard of, but there's a movie called The Way, Way Back, which I love. It's so good. And it's kind of indie. Steve Carell is in it, and I really like that one. That's probably one of my favorites for sure. Big fan of Perks of Being a Wallflower. That's a great movie. Haven't read the book, but I love the movie. But yeah, coming of age films in general is just a genre that I really appreciate, whether it's done in a comedic way or a dramatic way.
Right.
You know, it's interesting because it's done so often, but I'm always looking to see what they do differently with it. And also, like, they can tackle like different age groups. You know, there's movies about middle schoolers or high schoolers, or it doesn't really matter. It's like it's kind of just more about the trials and tribulations of growing up.
And even if it isn't a coming of age movie, if it can't be defined in that way, I like when shows or movies highlight coming of age aspects.
Yeah.
I'm even thinking of like Ozark, and it's a really shallow coming of age bit. Like they don't really focus a whole lot of time on it. But when they show the daughter in Ozark, you know, her runabouts, I always kind of like to see stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, Ozark is more of a dysfunctional situation than most families.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not something to emulate. But the coming of age bits of it are a little bit of a break from the drug trafficking.
Yeah,
It's
but
nice.
there's so many. I mean, It is actually, it's one of the probably the most popular genres, to be honest. If you look at like if a movie contains any coming of age elements, it just already you can include it in the genre, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. My last one would be, what are you most excited about in terms of movies in the coming year?
I mean, I'm hoping we get like, the whole summer season because of how they all got postponed. Because I love the summer movies. They're always a good time. I braved the theater. I saw Tenet.
What do you think of Tenet?
That's a whole other thing, bro. It's
right.
It's a good movie, but it's I have my complaints about it, but it's not a bad movie. It's just not I have a high bar set for Nolan though.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for that new Bond movie, man. That's what I'm most excited for.
Okay.
We were supposed to get it in April, then November, and now April again, then November again. So
Well, it'll be nice when movies and shows are coming out on a normal schedule.
yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, this year has really shown the potential for streaming. A lot of movies decided to go that route. I was reading about, we've already kind of discussed the streaming platforms in this episode, but I saw how the new Bond film, Netflix and Apple TV had shown interest in buying it, but then the people who made the film, while negotiating, said, we're not going to accept less than 600 million, which is like a high number, but it's also for one of the biggest movies of the year for one of the longest running franchises of all time. So yeah, man, I miss the movie theater because I'm a regular moviegoer. I go like every week. There are some movies playing in theaters, but it has to be like a movie I really want to see before I like mask up and show up to like Silverado or whatever.
Right, it's such an ordeal these days.
It's like it used to be like, oh well, it's Tuesday, it's discount day. We can go. We can go watch this movie that's probably bad. I saw Dora the Explorer in theaters because I had nothing to do. It was a different time.
How was that? I've never seen that. Was it live action? I don't even know what this is.
It's weird. It's a weird film.
Well, now I kind of want to watch it.
It's honestly, it's better than it should be, but it's not like great. Like I would have liked it as a kid, I think.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. There's a lot of movies that I watch nowadays just because they had good reviews or like I see something that stands out. And I tell myself I would have loved that as a kid. And kind of looping back into The Sandlot. The Sandlot is a movie I loved when I was younger as a teenager, and I like it today too.
Yeah.
Some
well,
movies,
it's where you find those.
Yeah.
Those that hold up.
Mhm.
You know what? You know another one. I I don't know. We may be coming up on time, but I'll leave you with this.
There's no time limit, so just
all right.
talk about anything.
Well, I think that Shark Tales. Do you remember that? Oh gosh, I want to say Will Smith was in it.
It wasn't Shark Tales though, was it?
Shark Tale, maybe.
It was Shark Tale. Yeah, I've seen
Shark
it.
Tale.
Rising
I
Robert De Niro?
absolutely, yeah, it was Will Smith. It was. Jack Black was in it.
2004.
Renee Zellweger, Angelina Jolie. Yeah, no, I thought that was a super clever movie.
Yeah, it was like the shark who doesn't eat meat, right?
Yeah, I mean, there was just tons of funny stuff like that. It was the sharks were like the mafia. It was absolutely hilarious. Chicken Little is another movie that I think definitely holds up now that I'm an adult.
Martin Scorsese is one of the voices in this movie. What?
Is he? Who is he?
He plays Sykes.
Sykes.
One of the greatest directors of all time features his voice in this film.
Oh my gosh, Robert De Niro was in it too.
Yeah, Robert De Niro.
What a star-studded cast.
You're into me for $5,000. 5 G's, okay?
5 G's? Man, you tripping 5
Oh, yeah?
G's.
See if this refreshes your memory.
What? That's crazy. Look at that. You wrote everything down so you wouldn't forget. Wow, this is a perfect example of why you're in management and I'm not. You go, boy.
This movie was kind of a bomb, though, I think, when it came out.
I wouldn't be surprised, but I remember we watched this on repeat.
I think I watched it a lot as a kid. I'm pretty sure I have the DVD, so I must have watched it at least a few times. You know, back when we couldn't stream stuff, we had to like either buy it or rent it. The Rotten Tomatoes consensus of Shark Tale is derivative and full of pop culture in jokes. That's that's all it says. But I kind of like that it has pop culture. I'm gonna have to watch the movie again. It's been a long time.
Yeah, I mean it's probably a good one to watch as a big group.
Well, the thing is, like with animated films, there's a lot of times where there's jokes that are just for the adults that we don't see as kids.
Yeah,
And-
yeah, it's always good to rewatch stuff. I think, like we've talked about, Pixar does it really well.
Watching Shrek 1 and 2 as an adult is a whole other experience because there's so many
need to do
clever
that.
little things.
I haven't watched that movie in quite some time, but it was one of my favorites as a kid for sure.
Yeah, the first two are really good movies.
Both of them, yeah. I don't think I loved 3, and I don't even think I watched 4.
I remember liking 3 A lot of people hate it, and then 4 was okay. But yeah, it went on for too long.
Yeah, just milking.
So we're getting close to the end of our discussion here today. The last thing I wanted to ask you, Zach, is if you had to convince someone to watch this movie, what would you tell them, or what's your sales pitch of the movie?
Oh my gosh. Come on, Yash. That's tough.
Tell me this.
You said this was going to be easy. Oh, man. Let me think. I'm not great at sales.
Sales pitch is just more of a phrase here. You don't have to give me the ins and outs of like why I should buy this movie.
I mean, really, it would just be, if you've ever been a kid, then you will relate to at least one character in this film. That's the gist of it. I mean, it's about baseball, but like you said, it's really not. It's just about being a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And it does it in a heartwarming and really funny way.
Yeah, for sure. I would say something similar. It's a movie that celebrates the innocence and fun of being a kid, while also just being like really funny. Super ridiculous characters who are also very memorable.
Just very over the top.
Yeah, like this wasn't part of the slang in the 60s, but they're just all very extra. Like
yes, it's so extra. You're right.
Right,
yeah, that's a great.
It's just a funny movie that has aged surprisingly well. It's very good for many age groups.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
No, I would totally agree.
Hey, you want a s'more? S'more what? No, you want a s'more. I haven't had anything yet, so how can I have some more of nothing? Shut up! You're killing me, Smalls.
All right, with that wraps up our discussion on The Sandlot. I'd like to thank Zach for joining us today.
Well, thank you very much for having me on. I really respect that you've started this podcast. It's something that I thought would be cool to do, but you're here actually doing it, and you're doing it really well. So really appreciate you having me on, and I wish you all the best, and I hope I can come on again.
Yeah, man. From all of us at Cinema Convos, thanks for listening, and we hope you tune in next time.